welcome back to the DBS studios. Animals are amazing creatures. I wonder if we knew interesting facts about them, whether we would pause before we harm them. For example, would you step on a snail if you knew that if a snail finds itself becoming too dry, its simple solution is to take a nap for 3 years? Some snails actually hibernate during dry spells, and in order to retain a required amount of moisture, it finds a safe place and hibernates for as long as 3 years. And they also have thousands of teeth in order to chop down on anything green. Now, if you knew all of that, would you see a snail and step on it? You know, what does a snail do to you that you want to step on it? People may say, what? Harms the vegetation, and it's creepy and all kinds of things like that, you know?
Slimy, and it's just not supposed to be where humans are supposed to be.
Oh my gosh.
Kind of stuff.
And in your department, I mean, what's the kind of the main concerns for you? Is it, a lot of it is attitudes and the way that people treat?
Yes, it's the behavior and just the culture. For example, let's look at snakes, for example. People, a snake or anything that crawls is just really creepy. It's not supposed to be there. We have poisonous snakes and we have non-poisonous snakes, boa constrictors as compared to the fiddlers. But the general and average St. Lucian, anything that crawls, you'll be dead. But there are lots of good values in both snakes, because the antivenom for the fiddlers can be used to prevent you from actually dying, which is really potent. We have the research being done right now, and we have one of the best antivenoms in our St. Lucian snakes as compared to maybe Martinique. The boa is also being used, even the oils of the boa, just like cocoa fat, in terms of if you have a broken leg and you can rub your skin and really oil up the skin again. So there are lots of medicinal values in both. And also it's part of the ecosystem. It takes care of rats in the forest and that type of thing. But people need to understand animals have its place in society or in the environment. Just like you have bees, if you were to destroy all bees, how your plants would be pollinated. And I know, Dr. Joseph, we have spoken about several projects of that nature, because no bees, no pollen, no fruits, no flowers. So sometimes people tend to forget that animals play a fundamental role in even our own livelihood, and not even realizing that. So there is great connectivity between animals and human beings. Okay,
when we talk about snakes, all right, what is the difference between the two snakes? How would we recognize them?
The head is something significantly different in terms of the boa and the fiddlers. But again, you know, as an average person, you walking across the forest floor and you see a snake, you think you would look and say, okay, let me look at the head to see whether it's a boa.
You do what they say in the movies. You run like this. Is that true? No, I've been told you see it in the movies. If you see a snake, you run like that.
Yeah, but I think too, you know, snakes are partially blind. They literally move and feel vibrations. That's what they feel. Is
that why they say stay still if you see a snake? I mean,
that too, yes, because
again, that's in the movies. But is that true?
It's very true.
If I saw a snake,
and you stopped, it would crawl right past you, or maybe even stop right next to you. But if you move, because that's what we said, if you move, vibrations, and that's it, because the snake all it's going to do is going to defend itself. So if you pass next to the snake, it's a snake. It's there. It's going to strike.
What if I threw something? If I threw something.
If you threw something away in its direction, maybe it would go in the direction that you threw the stuff. You know, so that's what it is. So you just have to be very careful, and it's all part of the environment, and that's basically what we have to do.
One of the other things you said was that the snake can be used as ointments and so on and so forth, but aren't these snakes protected? Isn't it illegal if we saw a snake and we killed it to do that?
Under the Wildlife Act, snakes are protected, and it's just, again, the whole education and making people understand that we need to live in harmony with animals, and that's what it's all about. So you wouldn't really always just go to the area. I mean, it's recreation in the forest. What you find now, persons are actually migrating away from urbanized areas and wanting to live in the forest, live closer. And we talk about, hey, you have snakes close to my home, or you have birds coming into my home and feeding. You realize now persons are moving away from the city and developing in urban areas. You're actually moving into the environment of these animals. So that's something we need to try to coexist. Without the animals, we're also in trouble. So
how do we go about it, educating people? Because I think a lot of people may think that it's actually the role of the farmer or the wildlife enthusiast or the departments, the various departments. So how do we get a regular person to be interested in animals?
Well, we start with the children, and that's where you need to start. So we have an education program, and we have an environmental education unit in the forestry department, and we go out to schools and we concentrate on the rural areas, the schools in the rural areas, and we speak to the children. We bring in live animals to the classroom and showing them the benefits and the importance of these animals. And what they do when these children go back home, they speak to their parents. Most of the parents are farmers, and they can understand that. So we give them posters, we give them pictures, we give them pens as when they answer questions, so that the people can understand that animals are just as important, or snakes or iguanas, whatever, they're just important in the ecosystem, just as human beings. And
when we say animals, are we including insects as well, or they're separate?
No, they're all part of the ecosystem. Ants are also part of the ecosystem. As I said, bees, people would figure out bees, if they sting you, they bite, and they sting you, then that's it, you're going to end up in hospital. Yes, but very important, and Dr. Joseph can speak to that, because I think you did quite a bit of your studies in terms of apiculture and making sure that you have the right flowers to produce and attract the right bees to produce honey. And honey is very important in anything that we do.
Here's a big question for either one of you to answer. What would you say is the ratio of human to animal in St. Lucia?
I would say that the animal, if you look at the accumulative numbers of all species, I think it's the outnumber.
So the animals outnumber human beings?
Yeah, they are.
And which animal would you say is the most abused, to your knowledge, as departments? Which animal is the most abused animal in St. Lucia?
The most abused animal in St. Lucia. Okay. If you look at the different animal species, those that are more domesticated and used as pets, because of their close proximity to humans, I think they'd be more subjected to abuses. And what comes to mind would be the dog. I think the dog is the most domesticated animal we have.
It's the most domesticated, but also the most animal that you see, you term as a stray anywhere. Just straying, there's just so many of them. I mean, why do we have so many strays in St. Lucia? Stray dogs, I'd say, in St. Lucia.
Okay, the wood stray, sometimes I'm very careful how I use the word stray. In St. Lucia, you have, well, not just St. Lucia, you have different categories of what referred to as a stray animal. An animal that is outside of a boundary confined of its home is considered to be a stray. And sometimes we classify a stray as an animal that has no home at all. And that's not necessarily so. We must understand too, we have certain cultural sets, certain cultural practices, and that a dog has a home, and if that home is within the rural or suburban or urban areas, that dog is allowed to roam freely, but it has an owner and has a home. And if it is outside of the boundaries of its home, it's considered to be a stray. You also have dogs that because they may have a disease condition, and the owners are not taking on the responsibility as an owner, may want to abandon that animal and drop it off in some far area from home, and that animal now has to fend for itself. That is another stray, in that it has been abandoned by its owner, so it has to fend for itself.
You know, I actually want to go into that a little bit more after the break, because there are actually certain rules that I think a lot of people just ignore. I don't know whether they know about them or whether they just ignore them when it comes to having pets in St. Lucia. But here is a reminder of tonight's giveaway. What is the name of the world's smallest snake that is only found on St. Lucia? Win a DFL treat. This is Dolor Factor Live on DBS. We'll be right back.